This is a true story of Willie Cheez, the battle between the ant and the mighty buffalo, written by Delmar Sosi. Introduction. In the heart of the Navajo Nation, nestled among the red rock canyons and wide-open desert landscapes, lives a young boy named Willie Cheez. Growing up on the res, Willie is surrounded by the beauty of nature, the strength of his family, and the rich traditions of his people. But like many young people, Willie is also faced with doubts, fears, and the challenges of pursuing his dreams in a world that sometimes feels overwhelming. This story follows Willie on a journey of self-discovery, a journey that begins with a simple but profound lesson from his grandmother, Gnarly, about the relationship between the ant and the mighty buffalo. Through this story, Willie learns that the ant represents his conscious mind, full of dreams and goals, while the mighty buffalo symbolizes his subconscious, where his deepest beliefs and fears reside. To achieve his dreams, Willie must learn to align these two parts of himself, guiding the powerful mighty buffalo with the determination and vision of the ant. As Willie navigates the challenges of growing up, he is guided by the wisdom of his elders, the lessons of the land, and the strength of his heritage. Along the way, he learns about the power of visualization, the importance of overcoming self-limiting beliefs, and the need for persistence and patience. Each step he takes brings him closer to understanding who he is and what he is capable of achieving. This is not just a story of a boy's journey, it is a story of growth, resilience, and the timeless wisdom that comes from the intersection of tradition and personal ambition. Willie's story is a reminder that we all have the power to shape our own destinies, but only if we learn to align our hearts and minds, and if we are willing to embrace the journey with courage and determination. Join Willie Cheez as he embarks on the journey of a lifetime, one that will take him deep into the heart of his own potential, and beyond the horizons of his wildest dreams. Chapter 1: The Ant and the Mighty Buffalo. Willie Cheez was a lively Navajo boy who lived in the small town of Chinle, nestled deep in the heart of the Navajo Nation. The land around Chinle was vast and beautiful, with towering red rock canyons, wide open skies, and the scent of sagebrush always lingering in the air. Willie loved exploring this land, finding adventures around every corner, but lately, something inside him had started to change. Willie had big dreams, the kind of dreams that made him feel like he could conquer the world. He wanted to be a great leader one day, someone who could help his community and make the world a better place. But whenever he thought about those dreams, he felt something holding him back, something deep inside that made him doubt if he could ever achieve them. One summer morning, Willie woke up early, just as the first light of dawn touched the edges of the sky. As he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, he felt a tug of uncertainty in his heart. It was as if a tiny voice inside him was whispering, "You can't do it, Willie. You're just a small boy on the res." This voice troubled Willie. He wanted to believe in himself, to trust that he could achieve great things, but no matter how hard he tried, the doubt lingered. He decided to visit his grandmother, Gnarly, who always seemed to know what to do. Gnarly lived in a traditional hogan, just a short walk from Willie's home, and she was full of wisdom and stories that had been passed down through generations. As Willie approached the hogan, he heard Gnarly singing an old Navajo song, her voice strong and steady. The song was about the earth and sky, and how everything in the world is connected. Willie found comfort in those words, and he knew that Gnarly would help him understand the feelings that were troubling him. "Gnarly," Willie called out as he entered the hogan. "Can I talk to you?" Gnarly looked up from the fire she was tending, her face lighting up with a warm smile. "Of course, my little one," she replied, motioning for Willie to sit beside her. "What's on your mind?" Willie sat down, feeling the warmth of the fire on his face. "Gnarly, I have big dreams," he began, But every time I think about them, I feel like something inside me is telling me I can't do it. It's like there's a part of me that wants to try, and another part that's too scared." Nali nodded thoughtfully, her eyes reflecting the flickering flames. What you are feeling is a struggle between your heart and your mind, between what you consciously want and what your deeper self believes. Let me tell you a story, Willie, a story about an ant and a mighty buffalo." Willie's curiosity was piqued. He had always loved Nali's stories, and this one sounded different from the tales of old. "An ant and a mighty buffalo?" he asked. "How can they be in the same story?" Nali smiled, knowing that this story would help Willie understand his own feelings. "Yes, an ant and a mighty buffalo," she said. "You see, the ant represents your conscious mind, the part of you that sets goals, makes plans, and dreams of the future. The mighty buffalo, on the other hand, represents your subconscious mind, the part of you that holds your beliefs, fears, and memories." Willie leaned in closer, eager to hear more. Nali's voice grew soft as she began the story. "Once upon a time, there was an ant who had big dreams. He wanted to travel far and wide, to see new places and achieve great things. But the ant was small, and he knew that on his own, he couldn't go very far. Fortunately, the ant lived on the back of a mighty buffalo. The mighty buffalo was strong and powerful, able to carry the ant wherever he wanted to go. But there was a problem: the mighty buffalo had a mind of its own. It would often wander in the opposite direction of where the ant wanted to go, following its own instincts and desires. Willie could picture the tiny ant, trying to steer the enormous mighty buffalo in the right direction, but struggling to make any real progress. "What did the ant do?" Willie asked, already feeling a connection to the little creature. "At first, the ant became frustrated," Nali continued. "No matter how hard he tried to steer the mighty buffalo, the great beast would resist, following its own path. The ant realized that if he wanted to reach his destination, he couldn't just pull and tug at the mighty buffalo. Instead, he needed to understand what the mighty buffalo wanted, what fears and desires were guiding it. The ant began to communicate with the mighty buffalo, speaking to it gently, with respect and patience." Nali paused, letting the message sink in. The ant discovered that the mighty buffalo had its own fears, fears of the unknown, fears rooted in past experiences. The ant realized that to reach his goals, he needed to help the mighty buffalo overcome those fears. He began to guide the mighty buffalo with positive thoughts and visualization, showing the mighty buffalo pictures of the beautiful places they could go together if they worked as one. Willie's mind was racing. He could see the parallel between the ant and the mighty buffalo and his own struggle. "So, the ant and the mighty buffalo had to work together?" he asked. "Yes," Nali replied with a nod. "The ant could not achieve his dreams without the mighty buffalo's strength, and the mighty buffalo needed the ant's guidance to find a new path. By aligning their goals and beliefs, they could journey together, making slow but steady progress." Willie sat in silence, letting Nali's words sink in. He realized that the doubts he felt were like the mighty buffalo's fears, deep, powerful, and hard to control. But he also understood that if he could align his conscious mind, his dreams and goals, with his subconscious mind, the part of him that held his beliefs and fears, he could overcome those doubts. Nali reached out and gently placed her hand on Willie's. "Remember, my little one," she said softly, "success doesn't come from force alone. It comes from understanding, patience, and persistence. If you can align your heart and mind, if you can visualize your success and overcome your fears, there is nothing you cannot achieve." Willie smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. The story of the ant and the mighty buffalo had given him a new way to look at his dreams and the doubts that had been holding him back. He knew that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but he also knew that with time and effort, he could guide his own inner mighty buffalo toward the future he dreamed of. As Willie left Gnarly's Hogan that morning, the sun was rising higher in the sky, casting long shadows across the red earth. He felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. The road ahead was long, but Willie was ready to take the first step, knowing that as long as he kept his mind and heart aligned, there was no dream too big for him to achieve. Chapter 2, The Journey Begins. After the morning spent with Gnarly, Willie Cheez felt a renewed sense of purpose. The story of the ant and the mighty buffalo had opened his eyes to the importance of aligning his heart and mind, and he was eager to start putting this new understanding into practice. However, he quickly realized that knowing something and doing something about it were two very different things. The journey to align his conscious dreams with his deeper beliefs would not be an easy one. The next day, Willie woke up before dawn. The sky outside was still dark, with just a hint of light beginning to creep over the horizon. He dressed quietly, careful not to wake his parents or younger siblings, and stepped outside into the crisp morning air. The world felt calm and still, as if it were waiting for something to happen. Willie knew that he needed to find a place where he could think, somewhere away from the distractions of daily life. He decided to head to Spider Rock, a sacred place deep within Canyon de Chelly, where he had always felt a strong connection to the land and his ancestors. Spider Rock was a towering sandstone spire that rose hundreds of feet into the sky, a place where the stories of the Dene people were said to live on. The walk to Spider Rock would take a few hours, but Willie didn't mind. He welcomed the opportunity to clear his mind and reflect on the things Gnarly had told him. As he made his way through the dusty trails, the sun began to rise, bathing the red rock canyons in a warm, golden light. The air was filled with the sounds of nature, birds singing, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the distant bleating of sheep. As he walked, Willie couldn't help but think about the doubts that still lingered in his mind. He wanted to believe in himself, to trust that he could achieve his dreams, but every now and then, the voice of doubt would creep in, telling him he wasn't strong enough, smart enough, or brave enough. It was like the mighty buffalo in Gnarly's story, stubborn and resistant to change. Willie paused on the trail, looking out at the vast landscape that stretched out before him. The land was both beautiful and harsh, full of challenges that had shaped the people who lived there for generations. Willie knew that he was part of that lineage, that the same strength and resilience that had guided his ancestors was within him too. But how could he tap into that strength? How could he steer his own inner mighty buffalo in the direction of his dreams? He continued on his way, the path growing steeper as he neared Canyon de Chelly. When he finally reached Spider Rock, the sun was high in the sky, casting long shadows across the canyon floor. Willie stood at the edge of the canyon, looking up at the towering spire that seemed to touch the sky. This was a place of power, a place where the boundaries between the physical world and the spiritual world felt thin. Willie sat down on a large rock near the edge of the canyon, letting the silence of the place wash over him. He closed his eyes and began to focus on his breathing, just as Gnarly had taught him. He imagined himself as the ant, small but determined, sitting on the back of the mighty buffalo. In his mind's eye, he could see the path he wanted to take, the dreams he wanted to achieve. But there, in the background, was the mighty buffalo, large and imposing, its eyes filled with uncertainty. Willie opened his eyes and looked up at Spider Rock. "What do I do?" he whispered, as if asking the rock itself for guidance. "How do I make the mighty buffalo listen?" The answer didn't come in words, but in a feeling, a deep sense of calm that began to settle in Willie's chest. He remembered what Gnarly had said about understanding, patience, and persistence. The mighty buffalo wasn't his enemy, it was a part of him, a part that needed to be understood and guided with care. He needed to listen to the mighty buffalo's fears, to acknowledge them, and then gently steer it in the direction he wanted to go. Willie stood up, feeling more grounded than he had in a long time. He knew that this was just the beginning of his journey, that there would be many challenges ahead. But for the first time, he felt ready to face them. He had a new understanding of himself and the power that lay within him, a power that came not from force, but from alignment. As he began the long walk back home, Willie couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. The road ahead was uncertain, but he was no longer afraid. He had learned an important lesson from the ant and the mighty buffalo, one that would guide him as he pursued his dreams. With his heart and mind in alignment, Willie Cheez was ready to embark on the greatest journey of his life, a journey of self-discovery, growth, and the pursuit of his dreams on the res. Chapter 3, The Weight of Tradition. The days following Willie's visit to Spider Rock were filled with a new sense of purpose. He felt more at peace with the idea of pursuing his dreams, yet as he started to focus on his goals, another challenge began to surface, one that was deeply rooted in the traditions and expectations of his community. Willie had always been close to his family and the teachings of the Dene people. The stories, ceremonies, and customs that had been passed down for generations were an integral part of his identity. However, as he began to contemplate the path he wanted to take in life, he couldn't shake the feeling that his dreams might lead him away from the very traditions that had shaped him. One evening, as the sun was setting and the sky was ablaze with fiery hues of red and orange, Willie sat outside with his father, Adam Cheez. The two of them often shared this quiet time together, watching the day fade into night while the smell of wood smoke from the cooking fires filled the air. Willie admired his father greatly. Adam was a man of few words, but when he spoke, his words carried the weight of wisdom and experience. "Dad," Willie began, breaking the comfortable silence, "can I ask you something?" Adam nodded, his gaze still fixed on the horizon. "Of course, son. What's on your mind?" Willie hesitated, unsure of how to express the conflict he was feeling. "I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do in the future," he said slowly. "I have these big dreams, things I want to achieve, but I'm worried that if I follow those dreams, I might lose touch with our traditions, with who I am." Adam turned to look at Willie, his expression thoughtful. "What makes you think that, son?" Willie struggled to find the right words. "It's just our way of life is so connected to the land, to our ancestors and their teachings. I want to help our community, but what if the path I choose takes me away from that? What if it makes me forget where I come from?" Adam was silent for a moment, considering Willie's words. Finally, he spoke, his voice calm and steady. "Willie, our traditions are not a burden, nor are they a chain that binds us. They are our foundation, the roots that keep us grounded, no matter where life takes us. It's true that following your dreams might lead you down a path that seems different from what you know, but that doesn't mean you have to lose who you are." Willie listened carefully, trying to absorb the meaning behind his father's words. "Our ancestors faced many challenges, and they had to adapt to survive," Adam continued. "They were resilient because they carried their traditions with them, not as a weight, but as a source of strength. You have the same strength within you, Willie. The key is to find a way to carry our traditions forward, even as you forge your own path." Willie felt a sense of relief at his father's words. He had been so worried that pursuing his dreams would mean turning his back on his heritage, but now he began to see things differently. The traditions of the Dene people weren't something that would disappear if he followed his own path, there was something he could carry with him, no matter where that path led. "But how do I do that, Dad?" Willie asked. "How do I stay true to our traditions while still following my dreams?" Adam smiled, a rare expression that made Willie feel a deep sense of connection to his father. You start by listening, by staying open to the lessons the land and our people have to teach you. Every step you take should be guided by respect for the earth, for our ancestors, and for yourself. And when you face challenges, remember the stories of those who came before you, the ones who overcame obstacles with grace and wisdom. Willie nodded, feeling a renewed sense of determination. He realized that his dreams didn't have to be at odds with his traditions. Instead, they could be a way to honor those traditions, to carry them forward into the future. That night, as Willie lay in bed, he thought about the journey ahead. He knew that balancing his dreams with the expectations of his community wouldn't always be easy, but he was no longer afraid. He had the strength of his ancestors behind him, and the wisdom of his father to guide him. As he drifted off to sleep, he imagined himself as the ant from Nali's story, gently steering the mighty buffalo toward a future that was both rooted in the past and open to new possibilities. The next morning, Willie awoke with a clear sense of purpose. He decided to take the first step in aligning his dreams with his traditions by visiting his grandfather, who lived at the sheep camp not far from their home. His grandfather, whom everyone called Che, was a respected elder in the community, known for his deep knowledge of the land and the old ways. As Willie made his way to the sheep camp, he thought about what his father had said. He wanted to learn more about how to honor his heritage while pursuing his own path, and he knew that Che would have valuable insights. When Willie arrived at the camp, he found Che sitting on a large rock, watching over the sheep as they grazed in the early morning light. The old man looked up as Willie approached, a smile creasing his weathered face. "Yati, grandson," Che greeted him warmly. "What brings you here so early in the day?" Willie sat down beside his grandfather, feeling the comforting presence of the elder beside him. "Che, I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do with my life, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance my dreams with our traditions. Dad told me that our traditions are a source of strength, and I want to understand how to carry them with me as I pursue my goals." Che nodded, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. "Your father is right, Willie. Our traditions are like the roots of a tree, they give us stability and nourishment, but they also allow us to grow tall and reach for the sky. To carry our traditions with you, you must first understand them, and to understand them, you must live them." Willie listened intently as Che continued. "This land we live on, the stories we tell, the ceremonies we perform, they are all part of who we are. But they are not just things of the past, they are alive, changing with each generation. It is your responsibility to learn these traditions, to understand their meaning, and then to find a way to apply them to your own life. In this way, you honor your ancestors and keep their wisdom alive." Willie thought about Che's words, realizing that the path to his dreams didn't have to lead away from his heritage. Instead, it could be a continuation of it, a way to bring the old and the new together. Che placed a hand on Willie's shoulder, his touch firm but gentle. "Remember, grandson, you are not just walking your own path, you are walking the path of your ancestors as well. Every step you take, every decision you make, is an opportunity to honor them and to carry their wisdom forward." Willie felt a deep sense of gratitude for his grandfather's guidance. He knew that the journey ahead would be challenging, but he was no longer afraid. He had the strength of his ancestors, the support of his family, and the wisdom of the Diné people to guide him. With these things in his heart, Willie Cheez was ready to take the next step on his journey, a journey that would lead him to fulfill his dreams while staying true to the traditions that had shaped him. Chapter 4, The Gathering of Stories. With his father's words still resonating in his mind and his grandfather's wisdom guiding him, Willie Cheez felt more connected to his heritage than ever before. He was determined to carry the traditions of his people with him as he pursued his dreams, But he also understood that this would require more than just knowledge, it would require action. One evening, as the sky turned shades of purple and the first stars began to twinkle, Willie sat with Nali outside her hogan. The air was cool, and the scent of the desert after dusk was fresh and calming. They had just finished supper, and the warmth of the fire was beginning to fade as they stared into the night sky. Nali, Willie began, breaking the peaceful silence, I've been thinking a lot about our stories, the stories you tell, the ones Dad talks about, and the ones Che shares. I feel like there's so much I need to learn, and I want to make sure I don't lose any of it. But how do I hold on to all these stories while still trying to live my own? Nali smiled at her grandson, her eyes reflecting the light of the stars. The stories of our people are not just tales to be remembered, Willie. They are the threads that weave us together, connecting the past with the present, and guiding us into the future. To carry these stories with you is not to hold them tightly, but to live them, to let them guide your actions and your choices. Willie nodded, trying to absorb the depth of Nali's words. But there are so many stories, he said, and sometimes it feels overwhelming. How do I know which ones are the most important? Nali chuckled softly. All stories have importance, my little one. But there are stories that will speak to you more strongly at different times in your life. These are the stories you must listen to closely, for they are the ones that hold the lessons you need at that moment. Willie leaned back on his hands, looking up at the sky. The stars were bright and clear, each one a small point of light in the vast darkness. He thought about the stories he had already learned, stories of Coyote and the holy people, stories of the earth and the sky, stories of his own family. Each one had its own meaning, its own lesson, but how could he bring them all together in a way that would help him on his journey? Nali, do you think I could collect these stories somehow? Willie asked. Maybe if I could write them down or record them, it would help me remember and learn from them. Nali considered this for a moment before nodding slowly. Yes, that could be a good way to keep the stories close to you. But remember, Willie, the stories are not just words on paper or voices on a tape. They are alive, and they need to be shared, lived, and passed on. Writing them down can help you remember, but it is in the sharing of these stories that they truly come to life. Willie felt a spark of excitement at the idea. He could start a project, a gathering of stories that would not only help him on his journey but could also be shared with others in his community. The thought of preserving the wisdom of his ancestors while also creating something new filled him with a sense of purpose. The next day, Willie set out on his new mission. He decided to visit the elders in his community, those who had lived through so much and had stories that were rich with experience and knowledge. He wanted to hear their tales, to learn from their lives, and to capture their words in a way that would keep their wisdom alive for future generations. His first stop was the home of Mrs. Yazi, an elderly woman who was known throughout Chinle for her storytelling. Mrs. Yazi had seen the world change in many ways during her long life, and she had a deep understanding of the old ways. Willie had always been a little intimidated by her, as she had a reputation for being stern, but he knew that her stories would be invaluable. When Willie arrived at Mrs. Yazi's home, he knocked timidly on the door. After a moment, the door creaked open, and Mrs. Yazi peered out at him with sharp, intelligent eyes. "Ah, Willie Cheez," she said, recognizing him immediately. "What brings you to my door today?" Willie hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Mrs. Yazi, I'm collecting stories from the elders in our community. I want to learn from them and keep them alive for others. I was hoping you might share some of your stories with me." Mrs. Yazi studied him for a moment, then nodded curtly. "Come in, boy," she said, stepping aside to let him enter. Willie followed her inside, his heart beating a little faster. The interior of Mrs. Yazie's home was cozy and filled with the smell of herbs and dried flowers. The walls were lined with shelves holding pottery, old photographs, and stacks of books. Willie sat down on a chair near the fire, feeling both nervous and excited. Mrs. Yazie took a seat opposite him, her movements slow but deliberate. "So, you want to collect stories, do you?" she asked, her voice both curious and challenging. "Yes, Mom," Willie replied, sitting up straight. "I want to learn from the stories of our people, and I want to share them with others so they don't get lost." Mrs. Yazie nodded, a faint smile playing on her lips. "That's a good thing, Willie. But you must understand, these stories are not just for you to take. They are gifts, and you must treat them with the respect they deserve. Do you understand?" "Yes, Mrs. Yazie," Willie said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I will respect the stories, and I will share them with care." Mrs. Yazie seemed satisfied with his response. She leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes for a moment, as if searching through her memories for the right story to tell. "Let me tell you a story, Willie, about the time when I was a young girl, not much older than you," Mrs. Yazie began, her voice soft but steady. "Back then, our people were still finding their way after the hardships of the long walk. We had returned to our land, but things were not the same. We were trying to rebuild our lives, to find strength not just for ourselves, but for each other. And in that time, I learned something important, something that has stayed with me all my life." Willie leaned in, listening intently as Mrs. Yazie's eyes grew distant, as if she was looking back through the years. "There was a girl in my village," she continued, "who, like you, had big dreams. She wanted to help her people, to be someone they could look up to. But she was small and unsure of herself. Every time she thought about her dreams, she felt something pulling her back, something deep inside that whispered, 'You are just a girl. What can you do?' She was like the ant in your grandmother's story, full of dreams, but not sure how to guide the mighty buffalo within her." Willie nodded, already seeing where the story might lead. One day, Mrs. Yazie said, the girl's grandmother took her aside and said, "My child, you have the heart of an ant, always busy, always dreaming of what could be. But you also have the spirit of a mighty buffalo, strong and powerful, but sometimes wandering in its own direction. If you want to make a difference, you must learn to guide your mighty buffalo, to align its strength with your heart's desires." The girl was puzzled at first, just as Willie had been. But her grandmother explained, "The mighty buffalo is like your fears, your doubts, and all the things you've been through. It's powerful, and if you let it, it can lead you away from your dreams. But if you can learn to speak to it, to understand its fears and guide it gently, you can direct that strength towards something good, something bigger than yourself." Mrs. Yazie paused, looking directly at Willie. So, the girl started small. She learned to listen to the whispers of her heart and the rumblings of the mighty buffalo within her. She didn't try to force it to follow her dreams. Instead, she showed it the way, step by step, using kindness, patience, and the love she had for her people. She learned to guide her mighty buffalo by understanding it, by aligning her heart with her spirit. Willie felt a connection to the girl in the story. He knew what it was like to have big dreams but to feel held back by something inside. As time went on, Mrs. Yazie continued, the girl grew stronger, not because she was forcing her way forward, but because she had learned to walk in harmony with her own spirit. Her mighty buffalo became her ally, helping her carry the weight of her dreams, and together, they did great things for their people. The girl, who once doubted herself, became a leader, just as she had always dreamed. Mrs. Yazie smiled warmly at Willie. "And that, my dear, is how you become strong, not by ignoring the mighty buffalo within you, but by understanding it, respecting it, and guiding it with the determination of the ant and the wisdom of your heart. Willie felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of clarity and resolve. Mrs. Yazi's story had given him a new way to think about his own struggles, a way to align his dreams with the strength he knew was inside him. Willie left Mrs. Yazi's home feeling inspired and eager to hear more stories. His next visit was to Mr. Begay, an elder known throughout the community for his deep understanding of history and the lessons it held for the present. Mr. Begay lived in a small hogan on the edge of town, where the land stretched out in a vast, open expanse, giving a sense of both isolation and connection to the earth. When Willie arrived, the sun was high in the sky, casting long shadows across the desert landscape. Mr. Begay was outside, tending to a small fire, his movements slow and deliberate. He looked up as Willie approached, a warm smile spreading across his weathered face. "I hear you're gathering stories, young man," Mr. Begay said as he stood to greet Willie. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying the weight of wisdom and experience. "There's one I think you should hear, about the massacre at Wounded Knee, a time when our brothers and sisters faced a terrible tragedy, but also showed the world the power of resilience." Willie nodded, his curiosity piqued. He had heard of Wounded Knee before, but he knew that hearing the story from Mr. Begay would offer a deeper understanding. Mr. Begay motioned for Willie to sit with him by the fire. The flames flickered gently in the light breeze, and the scent of burning sage filled the air, creating an atmosphere of reverence and contemplation. In the winter of 1890, Mr. Begay began, his voice steady and measured. The Lakota Sioux people, under Chief Bigfoot, were on the move, hoping to find peace in a world that had taken so much from them. They were tired, hungry, and desperate, but they still held on to their hope and their connection to their traditions. Willie could picture the scene in his mind, a group of people, weary from their journey, yet determined to find safety and refuge. The harsh winter winds biting at their faces, the snow crunching underfoot as they made their way toward what they hoped would be a place of peace. But the U.S. Army, Mr. Begay continued, his voice tinged with sorrow, fearing an uprising, surrounded them at Wounded Knee Creek. What happened next was a tragedy, a massacre. Hundreds of men, women, and children were killed, their hopes and dreams crushed in the snow. Willie's heart sank as he imagined the scene, the fear and chaos, the sounds of gunfire, and the cries of the wounded. The cold, relentless snow covering the lifeless bodies, turning the landscape into a stark reminder of the cruelty that had taken place. Mr. Begay paused, his eyes reflecting the weight of the story he was telling. Willie could see the pain in his expression, the deep sorrow that came from knowing that such a terrible event had taken place. "But do you know what happened after that?" Mr. Begay asked, his voice growing stronger, more resolute. "The massacre was meant to break their spirit, to crush the will of the Lakota people. But instead, it became a rallying point for all native people. The survivors and the descendants of those who were lost refused to let that day define them. They stood up, they fought back in their own ways, through their stories, their culture, their resilience. They showed the world that even in the face of such horror, our spirit is unbreakable." Willie listened intently, feeling the power of Mr. Begay's words resonate within him. He thought about the strength it must have taken for the survivors to continue on, to hold on to their identity and their traditions despite the overwhelming grief and loss they had endured. "You see, Willie," Mr. Begay continued, his gaze steady and unwavering, "the story of Wounded Knee is not just a story of loss. It's a story of survival, of the strength that comes from holding on to who you are, even when the world tries to take it away." The Lakota people, and all native people, showed that our connection to the land, to our ancestors, and to our culture is something that can never be taken from us, no matter how hard others may try. Willie thought about his own life, the challenges he faced, and the doubts that sometimes crept into his mind. He realized that the story of Wounded Knee was more than just a historical event, it was a lesson in resilience, a reminder that no matter what obstacles he encountered, he carried within him the strength of his ancestors, a strength that had been passed down through generations. "It's a reminder," Mr. Begay said, his voice gentle but firm, "that no matter what challenges you face, you carry the strength of your people within you. And that strength will guide you, just as it guided those who came before you. The world may try to break you, but it is in those moments that you must stand firm, hold on to who you are, and let your spirit shine through the darkness." Willie felt a deep sense of connection to the story, a connection that went beyond words. He understood now that resilience was not just about enduring hardship, but about rising above it, about finding strength in the very things that others might see as weaknesses. As he sat with Mr. Begay by the fire, Willie felt a sense of peace settle over him. The story of Wounded Knee was no longer just a tale of the past, it was a part of him, a part of his own journey. He knew that he would carry the lessons of resilience and strength with him as he continued to pursue his dreams, no matter what challenges lay ahead. When it was time to leave, Willie stood and thanked Mr. Begay, his heart full of gratitude. He knew that the story he had heard that day would stay with him forever, guiding him in ways he had yet to fully understand. As Willie walked away from Mr. Begay's hogan, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a warm, golden light across the land. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to honor the strength of his ancestors by living a life filled with resilience and hope. And so, with each step he took, Willie carried the story of Wounded Knee with him, knowing that it would be a source of strength and inspiration on his journey, a journey that was just beginning, but one that he now felt fully prepared to embrace. Finally, Willie visited Mrs. Sosi, who lived near the base of a tall mesa. The path to her home was long and winding, but Willie didn't mind. He had heard so much about Mrs. Sosi, known throughout the community for her deep wisdom and the stories she shared about the spiritual aspects of Navajo life. As Willie approached her modest hogan, he noticed the quiet beauty of the place, how the mesa seemed to watch over the land like a guardian, and how the wind whispered secrets through the sagebrush. When Willie arrived, Mrs. Sosi was sitting outside, her back straight and her eyes bright despite her years. She welcomed him with a gentle smile, one that made Willie feel instantly at ease, as if he had arrived exactly where he was meant to be. "Come, sit with me, Willie," Mrs. Sosi said, motioning to a woven blanket spread out on the ground. Willie sat beside her, feeling the warmth of the sun on his face and the coolness of the earth beneath him. There was a sense of peace here, a stillness that seemed to invite reflection and understanding. "I have a story for you, Willie," Mrs. Sosi began, her voice soft yet strong, carrying the weight of many years of wisdom. "It's a story about two wolves that live within each of us." Willie leaned in closer, eager to hear more. He could feel that this story was important, that it held a lesson he needed to learn. "Inside every person, there are two wolves," Mrs. Sosi continued, her eyes meeting Willie's. "One wolf is filled with anger, envy, sorrow, regret, and self-doubt. It is the wolf that feeds on the negative things we experience, the hurts, the fears, the disappointments. This wolf is always hungry, always looking for more to consume." Willie imagined the first wolf, its fur bristling with tension, its eyes narrow and sharp. He could almost feel its presence, lurking in the shadows, waiting for a moment of weakness. "The other wolf," Mrs. Sosi said, "is filled with joy, peace, love, hope, and faith. This wolf is calm, steady, and patient. It is the part of you that believes in goodness, that finds beauty in the world, even in the smallest things. This wolf does not need much to be satisfied, but it grows stronger every time you feed it with kindness, understanding, and love. Willie could picture the second wolf, its eyes soft and kind, its presence comforting and strong. It stood with quiet dignity, waiting for the right moment to guide him through the challenges he faced. "These two wolves are always fighting," Mrs. Sosie said, her voice growing more intense as she spoke. "They battle for control over your heart and mind, each one trying to become the dominant force in your life. The wolf of anger and doubt may seem powerful, but it is weakened every time you choose to feed the wolf of hope and love." Willie thought deeply about this. He could feel the truth in Mrs. Sosie's words. He remembered the times when he had let doubt and fear take over, how it had made him feel small and unsure of himself. But he also recalled the moments when he had chosen to believe in himself, to focus on the good, and how those moments had filled him with strength and confidence. "It is a choice you must make every day," Mrs. Sosie continued, her eyes never leaving Willie's. "Whether to let your fears and doubts control you, or to rise above them by feeding the parts of yourself that are good and true. The wolf you choose to feed will determine the path you walk in life." Willie felt a surge of understanding. He realized that the doubts he had been feeling, the fears that sometimes held him back, were like the angry wolf, always hungry for more. It was easy to feed that wolf, to let it grow stronger by focusing on the things that scared him or made him feel inadequate. But he also knew that he had the power to choose differently. Mrs. Sosie reached out and placed her hand on Willie's shoulder. "Remember, Willie," she said softly, "the wolf of hope and love is always there, waiting for you to feed it. Every kind word, every act of courage, every moment of gratitude, these are the things that nourish it. And as it grows stronger, it will guide you through the challenges you face, helping you to become the person you are meant to be." Willie looked up at Mrs. Sosie, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. Her words had given him a new way to think about his struggles, a way to find strength even in the face of doubt. He understood now that his journey was not just about overcoming obstacles, but about making choices that would shape who he was and who he would become. As Willie left Mrs. Sosie's home and began the walk back down the winding path, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The story of the two wolves stayed with him, echoing in his mind with each step he took. He knew that the path ahead would not always be easy, but he also knew that he had the power to choose which wolf to feed, and that made all the difference. From that day on, Willie made a conscious effort to feed the wolf of hope and love, to focus on the good in his life, and to let that goodness guide him. And with each passing day, he felt the wolf grow stronger, helping him to navigate the challenges of his journey with courage and determination. Willie Cheez was no longer just a boy with dreams. He was a young man on a path of self-discovery, guided by the wisdom of his elders and the strength of his spirit. And as he walked this path, he knew that he was not alone, for within him, the wolf of hope and love would always be there, leading him toward a future filled with possibility. As Willie walked home that evening, the stories of the three elders swirled in his mind. Each story had given him a new perspective, a new way to think about his journey. He realized that the strength of his people, the power of their stories, and the wisdom of their elders were all within him, guiding him every step of the way. Willie knew that his journey was far from over, but he felt more prepared than ever. With the stories he had gathered and the lessons he had learned, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, confident that he could align his heart and mind, and feed the wolf that would lead him to greatness. And so, Willie Cheez continued his gathering of stories, each one a piece of the foundation that would support him as he pursued his dreams. The stories of the Dene people were alive, and with Willie's efforts, they would continue to guide and inspire for generations to come. Chapter 5, Lessons from the Land. Willie Cheez's journey to gather stories from the elders was proving to be more rewarding than he had ever imagined. Each tale was like a thread, weaving together the fabric of his identity and connecting him to the past in ways that made him feel both grounded and inspired. However, as he continued to seek wisdom from the people in his community, Willie realized that there was another teacher he had yet to fully embrace: the land itself. The land of the Navajo Nation was vast and diverse, with red rock canyons, rolling mesas, and wide-open deserts stretching as far as the eye could see. For generations, the Dene people had lived in harmony with this land, learning its secrets and respecting its power. Willie knew that if he truly wanted to understand his heritage and align his dreams with the traditions of his people, he needed to deepen his relationship with the land. One day, as Willie was returning from a visit with Mr. Begay, an elder who had shared stories of the old ways of farming and the importance of water, he felt a pull to venture further into the wilderness. He decided to take a detour from the familiar paths and explore a part of the land he had never seen before, a place where he could be alone with his thoughts and listen to what the earth had to teach him. As he walked, the landscape around him began to change. The ground grew rockier, and the vegetation sparser. The air was dry and hot, but Willie didn't mind. He welcomed the challenge, knowing that every step he took brought him closer to understanding the lessons the land had to offer. Eventually, Willie came to a place where the ground sloped downward into a narrow ravine. The walls of the ravine were steep and lined with jagged rocks, but at the bottom, there was a small trickle of water flowing through the sand. Willie carefully made his way down, feeling the coolness of the air as he descended into the shade of the canyon. When he reached the bottom, Willie sat down beside the stream, letting the stillness of the place wash over him. The only sounds were the faint rustling of the wind through the rocks and the soft gurgle of water as it made its way through the canyon. Willie closed his eyes and listened, not just with his ears, but with his heart. As he sat in silence, Willie began to feel a deep connection to the land around him. He could sense the age of the rocks, the resilience of the plants that clung to life in this harsh environment, and the persistence of the water as it carved its way through the earth. He realized that the land was not just a backdrop for his life, it was a living, breathing entity that had its own stories to tell. Willie opened his eyes and looked at the stream. It was small, almost insignificant compared to the vastness of the desert above, but it had carved out a path through the solid rock, slowly and steadily over countless years. The stream's persistence reminded Willie of the lessons his grandfather, Che, had taught him about resilience and patience. Che had often spoken about the importance of respecting the land, not just for its beauty, but for the life it sustained. The land provides for us, Che had said, but we must also take care of it. We are stewards of this earth, and it is our responsibility to protect it for future generations. As Willie reflected on these words, he realized that his journey wasn't just about achieving his dreams, it was about doing so in a way that honored the land and the people who had come before him. The land, like the stories of his ancestors, was a source of wisdom and guidance. It taught lessons of persistence, resilience, and the importance of staying true to one's path, even when the journey was difficult. Willie spent the rest of the day exploring the ravine, taking note of the different plants that grew there, the patterns in the rocks, and the way the light changed as the sun moved across the sky. He felt as though the land was speaking to him, sharing its secrets in a language that he was only just beginning to understand. As the sun began to set, Willie knew it was time to head home. He climbed out of the ravine and began the long walk back to his village, but this time, he felt different. The land had shared something with him, something that went beyond words. It was a feeling of connection, of being part of something much larger than himself. When Willie arrived home, the sky was dark, and the stars were shining brightly overhead. He sat outside with his mother, who was weaving a new rug by the firelight. She looked up as he approached, noticing the thoughtful expression on his face. "What did you learn today, son?" she asked, her hands continuing to work the loom with practiced ease. Willie sat down beside her, feeling the warmth of the fire. "I learned that the land has its own stories, just like the ones Nali and Che tell. But these stories aren't spoken, they're felt. The land teaches us through its persistence, its resilience, and its ability to adapt. I think it's telling me that if I want to achieve my dreams, I need to be like the land, steady, patient, and strong." His mother smiled, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "That's a valuable lesson, Willie. The land has been here long before us, and it will be here long after we're gone. But while we're here, we have the opportunity to learn from it, to take its lessons and carry them with us in everything we do." Willie nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the wisdom of the land and the people who had taught him to listen to it. He knew that his journey was far from over, but with each step, he was growing stronger, more connected to his heritage, and more certain of the path he wanted to take. As he sat beside the fire, watching his mother weave the patterns of their people into the rug, Willie felt a sense of peace. The stories he had gathered, the lessons he had learned, and the connections he had made were all coming together, guiding him toward a future that was rooted in the past but open to the possibilities of the future. Willie Cheez was ready to continue his journey, knowing that the land would be with him every step of the way, teaching him, guiding him, and giving him the strength he needed to achieve his dreams while staying true to his traditions. Chapter 6: The Balance of Strength. As Willie Cheez continued his journey of self-discovery, the lessons he had learned from his grandmother, Nali, and his experiences on the land began to merge with the story of the ant and the mighty buffalo. He found himself reflecting on that story more and more, using it as a guide to navigate the challenges he faced. The ant, with its determination and vision, and the mighty buffalo, with its strength and deep-rooted instincts, were becoming symbols of his own internal struggle and growth. One day, Willie found himself thinking deeply about the balance of strength. He understood that the ant represented his conscious mind, the part of him that dreamed and set goals, while the mighty buffalo symbolized his subconscious mind, full of deep-seated beliefs, fears, and instincts. Willie knew that for him to succeed in his journey, he needed to find a way to balance the strengths of both, the ant's determination and the mighty buffalo's power. It was during one of these contemplative moments that Willie decided to visit the old corral where his father kept their horses. Horses had always been a part of life on the res, valued not only for their strength and endurance but also for their spirit. Willie had grown up around horses, learning to ride and care for them from a young age. He knew that understanding a horse required patience, respect, and a willingness to listen, lessons that mirrored the teachings of the ant and the mighty buffalo. When Willie arrived at the corral, he found his father already there, brushing down one of the horses, a strong and proud stallion named Thunder. Thunder was known throughout the community for his speed and strength, but he was also known for his stubbornness. It had taken years for Willie's father to earn Thunder's trust and cooperation, but the bond they had formed was unbreakable. "Dad," Willie called out as he approached, "can I help with Thunder?" Adam Cheez looked up from his work, a smile on his face. "Of course, son," he replied, handing Willie a brush. "Thunder could use some extra attention today." Willie took the brush and began to work alongside his father, feeling the familiar rhythm of the task. As he brushed Thunder's sleek coat, he couldn't help but think about the parallels between the horse and the mighty buffalo from Nali's story. Both were powerful creatures, capable of great feats, but they needed guidance to reach their full potential. "Dad," Willie began, his voice thoughtful, "do you think Thunder is like the mighty buffalo from Nali's story?" Adam raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the question. "What do you mean, Willie?" Willie paused, gathering his thoughts. "Well, thunder is strong and powerful, just like the mighty buffalo. But he's also stubborn and doesn't always want to do what we ask. It took you a long time to earn his trust and get him to listen, didn't it?" Adam nodded, understanding where Willie was going with this. "Yes, it did. Thunder has a strong will, and he's not easily swayed. But once I learned to work with him, rather than against him, we became a team. It's about finding the balance, Willie, understanding his strength and using it in a way that aligns with our goals." Willie thought about this, realizing that the same principle applied to the relationship between the ant and the mighty buffalo. The ant couldn't force the mighty buffalo to go where it wanted, it had to guide the mighty buffalo, using its strength to achieve their shared goals. "So, it's like the ant in Nali's story," Willie said slowly. "The ant had to understand the mighty buffalo's strength and fears to guide it. The ant couldn't do it alone, just like you couldn't make thunder cooperate by force. You had to earn his trust and respect." Adam smiled, clearly proud of his son's insight. "Exactly, Willie. The ant and the mighty buffalo are a team, just like me and thunder. And just like with thunder, you need to be patient with yourself. Your dreams are the ant, but your fears and beliefs are the mighty buffalo. You can't ignore them or try to force them into submission. You need to understand them, work with them, and guide them in the right direction." As they continued to work, Willie felt a deeper connection to the story of the ant and the mighty buffalo. He realized that his journey wasn't just about achieving his dreams, it was about understanding the balance between his conscious desires and his deeper, subconscious fears and beliefs. The mighty buffalo wasn't just an obstacle to be overcome, it was a partner in his journey, one that required patience, understanding, and respect. When they finished brushing thunder, Willie's father suggested they take the horses out for a ride. Willie eagerly agreed, saddling up his own horse, a gentle mare named Star. As they rode through the vast landscape of the Navajo Nation, Willie felt a sense of harmony between himself, the horse, and the land. It was as if everything had clicked into place, and he could see the path ahead with greater clarity. The ride gave Willie time to think about how he could apply these lessons to his own life. He realized that he needed to spend more time understanding his own fears and beliefs, not just pushing them aside but truly listening to what they were trying to tell him. Just as his father had learned to work with thunder, Willie needed to learn to work with his own inner mighty buffalo, guiding it gently but firmly toward the goals he had set. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the desert, Willie and his father returned to the corral. Willie felt a deep sense of peace and accomplishment, knowing that he had taken another important step on his journey. The lessons of the ant and the mighty buffalo were becoming clearer with each passing day, and Willie was learning to harness the strength of both as he moved forward. That night, as Willie lay in bed, he thought about the journey ahead. He knew that there would be challenges, moments of doubt, and times when the mighty buffalo inside him would resist. But he also knew that he had the tools to guide it, patience, understanding, and a willingness to listen. With these tools, Willie Cheez was confident that he could achieve his dreams while staying true to the traditions and wisdom of his people. The road ahead was long, but Willie was ready. The ant and the mighty buffalo were no longer at odds, they were partners, working together to navigate the journey of life on the res, and beyond. Chapter 7, The Power of Visualization. Willie Cheez had come a long way on his journey of self-discovery. He had learned valuable lessons from the stories of his elders, from the land, and from the symbolic relationship between the ant and the mighty buffalo. But as he continued to pursue his dreams, Willie realized that there was another crucial element he needed to master, the power of visualization. One afternoon, As Willie was helping his mother gather herbs from the hills surrounding their home, he found himself thinking about how he could align his thoughts and emotions more effectively. The ant and the mighty buffalo were working together better than before, but there were still moments when doubt crept in, when the mighty buffalo hesitated and slowed their progress. Willie knew that to truly guide the mighty buffalo, he needed to create a clear vision of where they were going, a vision so strong that the mighty buffalo couldn't help but follow. That evening, after finishing his chores, Willie decided to visit Gnarly. He hadn't spoken to her in a few days, and he felt that she might have some wisdom to share on the subject of visualization. The sky was clear, and the stars were beginning to appear as Willie walked to her hug-on, the cool night air filling his lungs with each step. When Willie arrived, Gnarly was sitting outside, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the moon. She looked up as he approached, her eyes filled with warmth and understanding. "Hey, my little one," Gnarly greeted him, motioning for Willie to sit beside her. "Hey, Gnarly," Willie replied, settling down next to her. He paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "Gnarly, I've been thinking a lot about the ant and the mighty buffalo, and how they need to work together. I understand that I need to guide the mighty buffalo with patience and understanding, but I think I'm missing something. How do I create a vision strong enough that the mighty buffalo will follow without hesitation?" Gnarly smiled, sensing the depth of Willie's question. You are beginning to understand the importance of visualization, Willie. The mind is a powerful tool, and the images we create in our minds can shape our reality. The ant may be small, but it has the ability to see beyond the immediate path, to envision the destination. The mighty buffalo, on the other hand, is guided by its instincts, its memories, and its emotions. If you can create a vision that speaks to both the ant and the mighty buffalo, you can align them in a way that makes your journey smoother and more focused. Willie nodded, intrigued by the idea. "But how do I create that kind of vision, Gnarly? How do I make it strong enough that the mighty buffalo will trust it?" Gnarly looked up at the sky, the stars twinkling like diamonds scattered across a dark canvas. "The first step, Willie, is to be clear about what you want. You must see it in your mind as if it has already happened. Picture it in vivid detail. What does it look like, feel like, and even smell like? The more real you can make it in your mind, the more it will resonate with the mighty buffalo." Willie closed his eyes, trying to picture his dreams with the kind of clarity Gnarly described. He imagined himself achieving his goals, standing tall and confident, with his community around him, supporting and celebrating his success. He saw the land, the red rocks of the canyon, and the vast sky above, all part of his journey. "Now," Gnarly continued, "you must not only see this vision but also feel it. Emotions are powerful, Willie. The mighty buffalo is guided by feelings as much as by images. If you can connect strong, positive emotions to your vision, joy, pride, gratitude, the mighty buffalo will be drawn to it naturally." Willie focused on the emotions he associated with his dreams. He felt a deep sense of joy at the thought of making a difference in his community, of honoring his traditions while forging a new path. He imagined the pride his family would feel, the pride he would feel in himself for staying true to his values. "Once you have this vision, Willie," Gnarly said softly, "you must return to it often. Visualization is not a one-time event, it's a practice. Every day, take a few moments to close your eyes and see your dream as clearly as you can. Feel the emotions associated with it. The more you do this, the more your mind and body will align with that vision, and the more the mighty buffalo will trust the path you're leading it on." Willie opened his eyes, a sense of clarity washing over him. He understood now that visualization wasn't just about setting a goal, it was about creating a vivid, emotional roadmap that could guide both the ant and the mighty buffalo. It was about making his dreams so real in his mind that they became inevitable in reality. "Thank you, Gnarly," Willie said, his voice filled with gratitude. "I think I understand now. I'll practice this every day, and I'll keep refining my vision until it's something the mighty buffalo can't ignore." Gnarly smiled, proud of her grandson's determination. "Remember, Willie, you are the creator of your own reality. The ant and the mighty buffalo may seem like separate parts of you, but they are both guided by your mind and heart. If you can align them through the power of your vision, there is nothing you cannot achieve." Willie spent the next few days practicing visualization, just as Gnarly had instructed. Each morning and evening, he would find a quiet place to sit, close his eyes, and immerse himself in the vision of his future. He pictured every detail, from the way the sun felt on his face to the sounds of his community around him. He focused on the emotions, letting them fill him up until they were as real as the ground beneath his feet. Slowly but surely, Willie began to notice a change. The doubts that had once held him back started to fade, replaced by a growing sense of confidence and certainty. The mighty buffalo within him seemed less resistant, more willing to follow the path the ant had set. He felt more aligned, more in control of his journey. One afternoon, as Willie was walking through the canyon, he realized just how powerful this practice had become. He no longer felt as if he were pulling the mighty buffalo along. Instead, they were moving together, in sync, with a shared vision guiding them forward. The road ahead was still long, but it was clear, and for the first time, Willie felt that nothing could stand in his way. As the sun set behind the red rocks, casting long shadows across the desert, Willie knew that he was on the right path. The lessons of the ant and the mighty buffalo, combined with the power of visualization, had given him the tools he needed to pursue his dreams while staying true to his roots. With each step, Willie Cheez was becoming the person he was meant to be, a young leader ready to make his mark on the world, guided by the wisdom of his ancestors and the strength of his own heart and mind. Chapter 8, Conquering the Inner Doubt. Willie Cheez had made significant progress on his journey of self-discovery. He had learned to align his conscious goals with his subconscious beliefs, visualized his dreams with clarity, and strengthened the connection between the ant and the mighty buffalo within him. But despite all his growth, there was one more challenge he had yet to face: overcoming the self-limiting beliefs that had been deeply ingrained in his subconscious mind. These beliefs were like hidden saboteurs, quietly undermining his confidence and progress. They whispered doubts and fears into his mind, often without him even realizing it. Willie knew that to truly achieve his dreams, he had to confront these beliefs head-on and reprogram his subconscious mind to support, rather than hinder, his journey. One evening, after a long day of helping his father repair fences around their land, Willie sat by the fire outside their home, feeling a sense of unease. Despite all the work he had done to align his heart and mind, there were moments when he still felt uncertain, as if something was holding him back. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was a part of him that didn't believe he could succeed, a part that was afraid of failure. As he stared into the flames, Willie decided that it was time to confront these self-limiting beliefs. He had learned from Gnarly, Che, and his father that the first step in overcoming any challenge was to understand it. He needed to identify the thoughts and beliefs that were sabotaging his progress, so he could replace them with positive, empowering ones. The next day, Willie decided to visit a secluded spot near the canyon, a place where he could be alone with his thoughts. The area was quiet and peaceful, with a small stream flowing nearby and tall cliffs towering above. Willie sat down on a smooth rock and closed his eyes, letting the sounds of nature soothe his mind. He began to reflect on the thoughts that had been troubling him. He thought about the moments when he doubted himself, when he felt like he wasn't good enough or strong enough to achieve his dreams. He realized that these thoughts often stemmed from past experiences, times when he had faced challenges and felt defeated, when others had doubted him or when he had doubted himself. Willie knew that these beliefs were deeply rooted in his subconscious mind, just like the mighty buffalo's fears from Nali's story. If he wanted to overcome them, he needed to bring them to the surface, to examine them and understand where they came from. Only then could he begin to change them. As he sat there, Willie allowed himself to feel the emotions associated with these beliefs: fear, doubt, and insecurity. It was uncomfortable, but he knew that he needed to face these feelings in order to move past them. He reminded himself that these beliefs were not facts, they were simply stories his mind had created based on past experiences. Willie took a deep breath and began to challenge these beliefs. He asked himself questions: is it really true that I'm not good enough? What evidence do I have to support that belief? And what evidence do I have that contradicts it? He thought about all the things he had accomplished so far, the lessons he had learned, and the progress he had made. He realized that his achievements were proof that he was capable, that he was strong enough to succeed. With each question, Willie felt the power of the negative beliefs begin to weaken. He could see that these thoughts were not grounded in reality, they were remnants of past fears that no longer served him. He began to replace these beliefs with positive affirmations: I am capable. I am strong. I am worthy of achieving my dreams. As he repeated these affirmations, Willie felt a shift within him. It was as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders, and he could see the path ahead more clearly. The mighty buffalo within him, once hesitant and fearful, now seemed more confident, more willing to move forward. Willie opened his eyes and looked around at the canyon, the stream, and the sky above. He felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that he had taken an important step in his journey. He had faced his inner saboteur and had begun the process of reprogramming his subconscious mind to support his goals. Over the next few days, Willie continued to practice this new approach. Whenever he noticed a negative thought or belief creeping in, he would challenge it, replacing it with a positive affirmation. He visualized his dreams with even greater clarity, using the power of his mind to create a future where he was successful and fulfilled. As the days turned into weeks, Willie noticed a significant change in himself. The doubts that had once held him back were no longer as powerful. He felt more confident, more in control of his journey. The ant and the mighty buffalo were moving forward together, no longer hindered by the self-limiting beliefs that had once sabotaged their progress. One evening, as Willie was walking home from a visit with Che, he felt a sense of accomplishment wash over him. He had come so far on his journey, and he knew that there was still much to learn and achieve. But he also knew that he was capable of facing any challenge that came his way. When Willie arrived home, he found his mother sitting outside, weaving by the fire. She looked up as he approached, noticing the calm and confident expression on his face. "You seem different, Willie," she said with a smile. "What's changed?" Willie sat down beside her, feeling the warmth of the fire. "I've been working on overcoming some of the beliefs that were holding me back," he explained. "I realized that I was letting my fears and doubts control me, but now I'm learning to replace those beliefs with positive ones. It's making a big difference." His mother nodded, her eyes filled with pride. "That's an important lesson, Willie. Our thoughts have power, and if we can learn to control them, there's nothing we can't achieve." Willie smiled, feeling more connected to his journey than ever before. He knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but he was ready to face them with confidence and determination. The ant and the mighty buffalo were no longer at odds, they were a team, working together to overcome any obstacle in their path. As Willie lay in bed that night, he felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. He had taken another important step on his journey, and he knew that he was on the right path. With his heart and mind aligned, and his subconscious mind reprogrammed to support his goals, Willie Cheez was ready to continue his journey, confident that he could achieve his dreams and make a difference in his community. The night was quiet, the stars shining brightly above, and Willie drifted off to sleep, knowing that the ant and the mighty buffalo were moving forward together, stronger and more unified than ever before. Chapter 9, Persistence and Patience. Willie Cheez had grown stronger with each step on his journey. He had learned to align his conscious goals with his subconscious beliefs, to visualize his dreams clearly, and to overcome the self-limiting beliefs that had once held him back. Yet, as he continued to pursue his dreams, Willie realized that there were two more qualities he needed to cultivate: persistence and patience. The road to achieving his dreams was long, and there were moments when progress seemed slow, even non-existent. Willie understood that the journey was not just about reaching the destination but about staying committed to the path, even when the results were not immediately visible. He knew that he had to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult or uncertain the journey became. One morning, as the sun was just beginning to rise over the Red Rock Canyons, Willie set out to visit his grandfather, Che, at the sheep camp. Che had always been a source of wisdom for Willie, and today, Willie felt the need for his guidance. As he walked through the familiar paths, Willie reflected on how far he had come, but also on the challenges that still lay ahead. When Willie arrived at the sheep camp, he found Che sitting outside, tending to a small fire. The morning air was crisp, and the smell of burning cedar filled the air. Che looked up as Willie approached, a smile spreading across his weathered face. "Yati, grandson," Che greeted him warmly. "What brings you here so early?" Willie sat down beside his grandfather, feeling the warmth of the fire. "Yati, Che," Willie replied. "I've been thinking a lot about my journey, and I've realized that there are still things I need to learn, like how to stay persistent and patient when things don't happen as quickly as I'd like." Che nodded, understanding the struggles Willie was facing. Persistence and patience," he said thoughtfully. "Those are qualities that take time to develop, but they are essential for any journey, especially one as important as yours." Willie looked at his grandfather, eager to hear more. "How do I stay persistent, Che? How do I keep going when it feels like I'm not making any progress?" Che leaned back, his eyes reflecting the light of the fire. "Let me tell you a story, Willie," he began. "It's a story about the land, about how it teaches us to be persistent and patient." Willie listened intently as Che began to speak. "Many years ago," Che began, "there was a time of great drought in our land. The rivers dried up, the plants withered, and the animals struggled to find food and water. The people were worried, for without water, there could be no life. But there was one place where the water still flowed, a small, hidden spring deep within the canyon. The spring was fed by an underground river, one that had been slowly carving its way through the rock for centuries. It wasn't a fast or powerful river, but it was persistent. Every drop of water that flowed through that spring had traveled a long and difficult journey, slowly and steadily making its way through the earth, carving out a path where none had existed before." Che paused, letting the image of the underground river sink in. "That spring sustained our people during the drought, providing them with the water they needed to survive. It taught us an important lesson, that persistence, even when progress seems slow, can lead to great things." The river didn't give up when it encountered obstacles, it found a way around them, carving its path one drop at a time. Willie nodded, understanding the message of the story. "So, even if it feels like I'm not making progress, I need to keep going, just like the river?" Yes, Willie, Che replied. Progress isn't always visible in the moment, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Every step you take, every small action you make, is contributing to your journey. Just like the river, you may face obstacles, but if you keep moving forward, you will find a way through. Willie thought about the challenges he had faced so far, moments of doubt, setbacks, and the slow pace of progress. He realized that these were all part of the journey, and that persistence wasn't just about pushing through, it was about trusting that every effort he made was bringing him closer to his goal. But what about patience, Che? Willie asked. How do I stay patient when I want to see results now? Che smiled, his eyes twinkling with wisdom. Patience, Willie, is about understanding that everything has its own time. Just as the seasons change, and the land goes through cycles of growth and rest, so too does your journey. There will be times of great progress, and times when it seems like nothing is happening. But even in those quiet moments, things are growing beneath the surface. Che pointed to a small juniper tree growing nearby. Look at that tree, he said. It didn't grow overnight. It took years for it to become what it is today. It had to be patient, to trust that with time and care, it would grow strong and tall. Your journey is like that tree, Willie. It requires patience, trust, and the understanding that true growth takes time. Willie looked at the juniper tree, its branches reaching toward the sky, and felt a deep sense of calm. He realized that patience wasn't about waiting passively, it was about nurturing his dreams, trusting that they would grow in their own time, and continuing to take small, persistent steps forward. Thank you, Che, Willie said, his voice filled with gratitude. I understand now. I need to be like the river, persistent and steady, and like the tree, patient and trusting in the process. Che smiled, placing a hand on Willie's shoulder. You're learning, grandson. Remember, the journey is not just about reaching the destination, it's about who you become along the way. With persistence and patience, you will grow into the person you are meant to be. As Willie walked home from the sheep camp that evening, he felt a renewed sense of determination. He knew that the road ahead would still have its challenges, but he was ready to face them with the lessons of the river and the tree guiding him. He understood that progress wasn't always visible, but that didn't mean it wasn't happening. And he knew that with persistence and patience, he could achieve his dreams while staying true to the traditions of his people. The ant and the mighty buffalo within him were moving forward together, stronger and more aligned than ever before. Willie Cheez was ready to continue his journey, confident that with each small step, he was carving a path toward a future filled with possibilities. The journey was long, but Willie had the strength, the patience, and the persistence to see it through, one drop at a time. Chapter 10, The Journey of a Lifetime. Willie Cheez had come a long way on his journey, a journey that began in the warmth of Nali's Hogan, where he first heard the story of the ant and the mighty buffalo. The lessons he had absorbed from his family, the land, and the elders of his community had shaped him in ways he never could have imagined. Willie had learned to align his conscious goals with his subconscious beliefs, to visualize his dreams with unwavering clarity, and to overcome the self-limiting thoughts that once held him back. Through the trials he faced, he cultivated the persistence and patience that would serve him for a lifetime. But as he stood at the edge of the canyon one quiet evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Willie understood that his journey was far from over. The vast, open landscape of the Navajo Nation stretched out before him, a reminder of the endless paths yet to be walked. The lessons he had learned were not just for the achievement of a single goal, they were the foundation upon which he would build the rest of his life. These teachings were not mere memories, they were tools he would carry with him, guiding him through every challenge and opportunity that would come his way. As the sky deepened into shades of purple and blue, Willie felt a profound sense of peace. He realized that life itself was not just a single journey, but a series of interconnected journeys, each with its own lessons, challenges, and rewards. There would be new dreams to pursue, new challenges to face, and new obstacles to overcome. Yet, he knew with certainty that he was equipped to handle whatever came his way. The ant and the mighty buffalo within him had become strong partners, working in harmony to navigate the uncertain path ahead. The bond between his conscious and subconscious minds had been forged in the fires of experience. The ant, representing his dreams and ambitions, had learned to guide the mighty buffalo, his deep-seated beliefs, fears, and strengths. Together, they moved forward with purpose, no longer in conflict, but as a unified force that propelled Willie toward his future. As Willie looked out over the vast expanse of the land, he felt an unbreakable connection to his ancestors, his family, and the earth that had shaped him. The red rocks, the sagebrush, the endless sky, they were not just part of the landscape, they were part of him. He understood that he was not walking this path alone. He was guided by the wisdom of those who had come before him and by the strength of the traditions that had been passed down through generations. In that quiet moment of reflection, Willie made a solemn promise to himself, to always remember the lessons he had learned, to stay true to his values, and to continue growing and evolving on his journey. He knew that the road ahead would not always be smooth, but he also knew that he had the strength, patience, and perseverance to overcome any challenge that might arise. The ant and the mighty buffalo within him were no longer just symbols, they were integral parts of who he was, guiding his steps with wisdom and power. As the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky, Willie turned and began the walk back home. The evening air was cool against his skin, and the sounds of the night creatures began to fill the silence. The journey ahead was uncertain, but Willie felt ready for it. He knew that life would continue to present him with challenges, but he also knew that he had the tools to face them. The lessons from Willie Cheez, his parents, and the elders were etched in his heart, and they would light his way no matter how dark the path might become. When Willie arrived home, he found his family gathered around the fire, their faces illuminated by the soft, flickering light. Laughter and stories filled the air, creating a sense of warmth and belonging that wrapped around Willie like a blanket. He joined them, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the love and support that surrounded him. As he listened to the stories being shared, he realized that he was now part of that long tradition, a keeper of stories, a carrier of wisdom, and a guide for those who would come after him. Willie Cheez knew that his journey was just beginning. There would be new dreams to chase, new stories to create, and new paths to explore. But with the lessons he had learned, the unwavering support of his family and community, and the strength of the ant and the mighty buffalo within him, he knew that he was ready for whatever the future held. The road ahead was long, but it was also filled with endless possibilities, each step bringing him closer to the man he was destined to become. As he sat by the fire, surrounded by those he loved, Willie felt a deep sense of peace. He knew that he had the power to shape his own destiny, to honor his heritage, and to live a life filled with purpose and meaning. The journey of a lifetime stretched out before him, not just a single path, but a vast network of roads that would lead him to places he had never imagined. And with each step he took, Willie knew that he was not just walking toward his dreams, he was walking toward a future where he could make a difference, where he could be a light for others, and where he could live a life that truly mattered. And so, with the fire of determination in his heart and the wisdom of his people in his soul, Willie Cheez set out on the journey of a lifetime, ready to embrace whatever came his way, knowing that the ant and the mighty buffalo would always guide him. Conclusion. As you reach the end of Willie Cheez's story, it's important to realize that this journey is not just Willie's, it's yours as well. The battles Willie fought within himself, the lessons he learned, and the strength he discovered are not unique to him, they are universal experiences that we all face at different points in our lives. You, too, have your own ant and mighty buffalo within you. The ant, representing your conscious mind, is the part of you that dreams, plans, and sets goals for the future. The mighty buffalo, your subconscious mind, holds your deepest fears, beliefs, and memories. These two forces often seem at odds, pulling you in different directions, creating a sense of internal conflict that can sometimes feel overwhelming. But just as Willie learned to align these two powerful forces within himself, so can you. The struggles you face, the doubts, the fears, the uncertainties, are part of your journey, just as they were part of Willie's. The key to overcoming them lies in understanding that these challenges are not roadblocks, but stepping stones. They are opportunities to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. Think about the times in your life when you felt held back by self-doubt, when the voice inside you whispered that you weren't enough, or that your dreams were too big to achieve. Those are the moments when the mighty buffalo within you, driven by fear and past experiences, tries to steer you away from your path. But remember, like Willie, you have the power to guide this buffalo, to align it with the dreams of your ant. By visualizing your goals clearly, by nurturing persistence and patience, and by trusting in your ability to overcome obstacles, you can bring your ant and mighty buffalo into harmony. This is not an easy task. It requires dedication, self-awareness, and a willingness to face the challenges that lie ahead. But know this, the power to do so is within you. The strength you need has always been there, waiting for you to harness it. As you stand on the brink of your own future, with your path stretching out before you, take a moment to reflect on the journey that has brought you here. Consider the lessons you've learned, the people who have supported you, and the inner battles you've already fought and won. Understand that every step you've taken has prepared you for this moment, and that you are ready to face whatever comes next. Your journey, like Willie's, is filled with endless possibilities. The road may be long and winding, but it is also rich with opportunities for growth, discovery, and fulfillment. As you move forward, carry with you the lessons of the ant and the mighty buffalo. Let them guide you, empower you, and remind you that you have the strength to overcome any challenge. This is your story now. It is a story of resilience, of courage, and of the unbreakable spirit that lies within you. Embrace your journey with confidence and purpose, knowing that you have the tools, the wisdom, and the inner strength to shape your own destiny. The challenges you face are not the end of your story, they are the beginning of something greater. So, as you step into your future, remember that you are not just walking toward your dreams, you are creating them, one step at a time. The journey is yours to make, and it is filled with endless possibilities. With each choice, each challenge, and each triumph, you are writing your own story, a story of victory over self-doubt, of alignment between your dreams and your fears, and of a life lived with purpose and meaning. Take the lessons you've learned, the strength you've cultivated, and the wisdom you've gained, and use them to face your own battles with the same courage and determination that Willie Cheez found within himself. The path ahead is yours to walk, and you are ready to embrace it with all the power, resilience, and spirit that lies within you. This is your journey of a lifetime. Make it one that honors your past, embraces the present, and boldly steps into the future.